Back to our Chamber South Live with Brittnie show in partnership with our friends here at Miami Community Newspapers. My name is Brittnie of Chamber. I'm the president and CEO here at Chamber South. And today I have with me two very special guests. We have Legal Services of Greater Miami in the house. We have Porpoise and Monica. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Monica, you're the executive director of the organization. Porpoise, you're the board chairman, correct?
Correct.
That's incredible. Well, awesome. So we're just going to jump right in. And to either one of you guys can rock, paper, scissors on who gets to start. But tell me a little bit of your personal and professional journey. And I always tell my guests, we want to know you, want to really know you. So throw in a fun fact.
Want to go first?
Ladies
Sure.
first. There we go.
Sure.
Such a gentleman.
So I'm a Miami native. Grew up in Miami in the 80s and 90s. And just the city has changed a lot. And when I was growing up, there was a large sort of homeless population in the downtown area. And I remember my family always going down there and being really active in trying to do things like provide food, which was they needed a lot more. But just always grew up with that desire to do something and to improve the community. Now we have a more, let's say, sophisticated and robust shelter system. We still have a housing issue, obviously, but always wanting to work in that space. And so knew I wanted to, when I went to college, either work in government, that's what I thought. But when I went to law school, discovered legal services as an opportunity and just fell in love with it on my first day. I started working on our homeless legal advocacy project and didn't leave for about 13 years running that project.
Wow.
And I've been at the organization for about 20.
Wow. And so you're a lawyer?
Yes.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, I mean, I would assume Legal Services of Greater Miami.
Yes.
Is your entire team lawyers?
So our team is 60, but 30 of them are attorneys working full-time
Perfect.
for the community.
That's incredible. Okay, Porpoise, tell me a little bit about yourself. You're the board chairman, which is a volunteer position.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have the same sort of direct path that Monica had. I grew up in Kentucky, went to college in Rhode Island, and then moved down here in 1994. And I worked in the film business. And then by 1999, I was ready to get a real job. And I went to law school, and my interest was always, my passion was for civil rights. And Monica and I actually worked together in law school. So
He was my boss then,
once, right. She likes to say I was her boss then too. But we were both lowly law students, but we worked in something called the Center for Ethics in Public Service. And we actually both took in continuing education training to legal services as law students. Monica continued fighting the good fight, when she graduated, but I went into big firms, and I worked in big firms for about 12 years. 11 of those with Greenberg Traurig, and then I started working for smaller firms, and now I'm in a mid-sized firm, kind of the Goldilocks approach, but still representing a lot of companies and donating a lot of my time to places that are close to my heart, like legal services.
There's a very altruistic nature in both of you that is critical for when you work in a not-for-profit world. Just a little bit off topic, not too much, and I promise it'll take a minute, but I actually fell into the lap of a not-for-profit when I graduated college. I thought I was supposed to be a lawyer because of my parents, not because of my own choice. They wanted me to go to law school, and I did pre-law, and I was like, I don't want to go to law school. This is not my passion. Mm-hmm. But I found my passion in not-for-profit, and so I think that's really interesting that you were able to combine the two, and now you're doing incredible things for our community. Thank you so much. So I know you touched on it briefly, but let's delve a little bit deeper into how you became involved, especially you, Porpoise, in terms of how you became involved with Legal Services of Greater Miami. Well,
when I went to law school, I thought I'm going to be a civil rights attorney. And to me, that looked like, having grown up in the 70s and 80s and then coming of age in the 90s, that looked like fighting police brutality and opposing police brutality. And in law, I only knew from the law what I saw on TV. And then when I went to law school, I realized how much more there was to practicing. And I had a mortgage, and I had a child on the way, and I took a summer job with a firm that paid a great salary, right? And those dreams of working for free kind of got put on the back burner. but it was still a real part of my goal and my mission to figure out how I could give back. Having grown up in a very working class environment, what could I do to continue fighting the good fight, if you will? So,
and sometimes that's necessary. Sometimes you need to be the successful person to be able to make that difference and that change and to make that impact. And so, like I said before, I think there's a very altruistic nature in both of you, and you were able to find a way to pursue your passion, and that's incredible. What about you, Monica? How'd you find Legal Services Greater Miami? Did you just find it while you were in law school, or like how did you get involved with the organization?
That's interesting. So when I was in law school, I actually applied for a clerk. The University of Miami would fund law students that wanted to work in nonprofits, because at that time the nonprofits generally didn't have paid, we call them clerkships, but they're basically internships in law school. And so I applied for an internship to work on the Homeless Legal Advocacy Project at Legal Services of Greater Miami. And so UM paid for my first job at Legal Services, basically as an intern, and I was doing intake in the homeless shelter and just had this incredible experience with clients and really being able to communicate with them and then advocate for them based on what they needed. We always hear that our clients, it's great because we're helping the voiceless. And I cringe when I hear that, to be honest, because our clients absolutely have voices. They just don't have professional advocates for them. And in our legal system, if you don't have an attorney advocating for you, it's almost impossible to, one, be heard, and two, actually achieve justice. So.
Yeah, so the work that you're doing is amazing. So we've said Legal Services of Greater Miami so many times. Let's talk about this organization. Yes. Like, tell me everything there is to know about Legal Services of Greater Miami. What is it that you do? Who do you service? How long have you guys been around? Like, let's just delve right into it.
Let's just start by saying Legal Services of Miami is not a traditional nonprofit organization.
Okay.
It is not the United Way. It's a law firm. As Monica just said, they have 30 attorneys on staff, support staff of another 30 or so folks. But it's a law firm, and their clients don't pay for their services. So it's a pro bono law firm with excellent advocacy skills. And so Monica can talk a little bit about
That's incredible. That's a major distinction, because it also shows to the level of services that you are being provided. So thank you for making that distinction, because that's huge.
So you asked how long we've been around. Actually, we've been around now 56 years, which for Miami is a pretty long time.
That is a long time.
And our history, I always think, is pretty cool and inspiring. So we were founded during the War on Poverty. And the thought was that they were going to hire an army in the country. They were going to hire an army of attorneys to fight the racial and economic injustices that were perpetuating poverty at the time. And so I think we've remained true to that mission in many ways. The areas in where we represent clients are really about achieving social and economic justice for them. So we have a huge focus on housing advocacy. We also do significant focus on consumer protections, education and healthcare access, and other population-based projects that we have. We have a veterans advocacy project. I mentioned the homeless. We even have a tax project. So really trying to improve the economic opportunities for our clients. And who do we serve? We serve the low-income communities in both Monroe County and Miami-Dade County. And so that, unfortunately, has been growing.
All of Monroe County?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay,
From
interesting.
Key
Might
West.
need to rebrand that name then. Greater Miami and
in
the Keys.
In the Keys, we go under Legal Services of Florida Keys.
Oh, okay, wonderful. So
yes.
is it
It's
and it's just the same organization? Is it a sister organization? Same organization?
Same exact organization. But to your point, Monroe County residents, the Florida Keys, we all know they rightfully so want something that's their own, like any community. So we try to do that outreach. But it's exactly the same attorneys. Given technology and our virtual, we serve a lot of clients initially, but we also ride circuit, how it used to be done in the Keys, and go, because the Keys, it's 3 hours from one end to the other. So we need to make sure to serve all. Yes. I mean, the low-income population there is obviously significantly smaller than in Miami-Dade. In Miami-Dade, you're talking about in excess of 500,000 individuals that are eligible for our services.
Did you catch what she said about riding circuit?
No.
Do you know what that means?
No, I didn't.
Sorry, that was a lawyer reference.
Florida is divided into, I don't know how many circuits, maybe 20 or so.
Okay, yeah, now it's clicking in my head.
Each courthouse is,
Right.
is a circuit. The Keys is a different circuit than Miami-Dade. And then people talk about riding circuit because the judges used to get on their horse and ride from one circuit to another.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So.
Wow. That's it.
Thank you for explaining that.
I did hear that, and I was like, oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so sorry, just to get back on track here.
Yeah.
So we're talking about all of these amazing services, and you were saying that Miami-Dade County has, like you said, 500,000
Over
people
500,000.
that would require your services or that would be eligible for
Based
your
on income,
services.
right.
So that was going to be my next question. How does someone sign up for your services? And you talked a little bit about it, but like what are some of the cases that you guys see, or if you can, in a very general term,
Of course.
discuss that? Yes.
Yes. So signing up for our services is fairly easy. There's 3 ways to become a client. There's walk-in intake Mondays and Wednesdays at our offices on 4343 West Flagler. There's phone intake, and then there's online intake, which basically you apply online for services and you get a call back. So I think the easiest thing is to go to our website, legalservicesmiami.org, and you could click on Get Help and see those options and laid out. The types of cases we handle fluctuates a little bit, but by and large, for example, in 2021, 55% of our cases were landlord-tenant cases. That's not surprising considering the affordable housing crisis that Miami-Dade is in right now.
We're going to talk about that.
And it's significant. But so we do a significant amount of both eviction defense is the primary one, but the second largest area for our housing tenants is going to be conditions cases. So when people are living in substandard housing and the landlord, for whatever reason, is not making the necessary repairs to bring it up to code. And so we will represent clients to ensure that that happens.
Okay.
But other areas, I'm sorry.
No. I have another question, but please, by all means.
So other areas, we have a unit that will help individuals that are denied or terminated or reduced any sort of government benefits. So everything from food stamps, which is now called SNAP, Social Security Disability benefits is a huge area that we see a lot of, and then Medicaid. So not only denial of Medicaid assistance, but also all Medicaid is now privately managed care. So if you are in Medicaid, you're in a private HMO. And individuals that are denied healthcare services in those HMOs, we will also represent them, which people don't readily identify as being a legal issue. You don't get denied healthcare and think, oh, I'm going to go talk to an attorney. But we handle those cases, and it's critical for the clients that we serve.
Are there any cases or are there any situations or cases that you would not handle? Like, is there something that, like, I mean, if someone's going through a divorce, like, is that something that you guys handle as well? Like, so is there anything that would be excluded?
Absolutely. There are other legal aid organizations in the county. There's an immigration provider, so we don't handle very much immigration. We do a little bit of citizenship, but that's not what we do. There's an organization that handles immigration cases. There's another organization that does family law and domestic violence. And so if we get a family law case walking in, that's what a divorce would be, a family law case, we would refer it to that agency, and we all work collaboratively.
Got it. Okay, perfect.
Important point. We do work collaboratively.
Yes, we love that. We love collaboration across
There can be
organizations.
confusion between the
Well,
names too. You know, we were talking about chambers before, but there's legal aid organizations, legal services, two separate entities that work well together.
Right.
And I think, and like you said before, especially with sort of our system today, if you don't have an attorney advocating for you, it can be very difficult. It can be overwhelming. It can be scary, and it could be the biggest obstacle in you making a change or getting something done. So I think working Legal Services of Greater Miami and all of the various legal aid organizations that are out there are so imperative to our community because they provide such an important service. So let's talk a little bit more about the housing. I know you touched on it. So given we have a huge housing crisis, I know the mayor just announced a plan on how she's going to combat this housing crisis. And it's an acronym and I can't remember it, which is probably not the best thing to say. But how does your firm help tenants and landlords? And if you could elaborate a little bit more on that.
So we represent tenants, usually in eviction proceedings. Eviction is when the landlord is basically suing you to move out. And so by and large, they tend to be a lot of non-payment of rent cases given the affordable housing crisis right now. But you could be evicted for a whole host of reasons, and we will represent tenants. And we represent two different categories, I would say. One is private housing, so you just go out and rent an apartment, and the other one is subsidized housing. So that could be people hear Section 8 vouchers or public housing. We get involved in those cases as well. Legally, it looks a little different, but we handle both cases.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And for landlords, the way that I think that we provide assistance is we don't represent them. They're clearly on the other side in terms of the advocacy, but we work with the county. I apologize. We work with the county in terms of getting rental assistance, the county and other agencies that provide rental assistance, and we then negotiate with landlords. And if a landlord is suing you for non-payment of rent and you owe, $7,000 or $8,000 of rent conservatively, and they get reimbursed that money, that's critical to them because many landlords are, they own a couple of properties or a small building. They're not these huge corporations. And so not getting paid rent can be
it's a business
challenging
for them as well, too.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's both sides to the coin there.
Right.
So, And that's important. It's important to be sort of that mediator, that in between, that person. That
I mean, we're definitely the advocate for the
Yes.
tenant for
Yes.
sure, but I think it's helpful to landlords to resolve these issues to the extent they can and get paid the money that they're owed if they're entitled to it.
Absolutely. I think that's crucial.
And a lot of the services kind of dovetail with each other too, don't they? Like you'll have a Veterans Affairs project,
Right.
and you'll be serving veterans who then are having landlord-tenant issues as well.
Right. Last year we served over 450 veterans. Most of them were landlord-tenant cases. So, and I thought you were going to go somewhere else. Many of our clients sometimes have multiple cases. So, for example, I don't handle cases anymore, but when I used to handle cases a few years ago, I once had a client and I was helping her on her unemployment case. And she worked at a fast food chain and she was unemployed because she had missed work so much, they fired her. And when I asked, well, why were you missing work? She was missing work because she was getting called to the child's school because her child was not in the appropriate educational setting for the child. So the child had disabilities but was not yet placed in special education services. And then she also had an eviction case. And it kind of shows you how for our client community, when you don't have that much sort of space to make a mistake, one little thing can really throw you off. So this is an individual that was terminated from her job at a fast food restaurant because she was missing work because her child was not in the right educational setting and then fell behind on rent and had an eviction case. And that's like a bad trifecta for that client.
It's a domino effect.
But it is not the most uncommon thing to have a client to have multiple cases in our office because when one thing falls, it sort of leads to the next. It's domino effect is a perfect word for it, yeah.
Absolutely. So let's pivot a little bit and let's talk, Chamber South. We are, a business organization, and we are the small business champion serving the greater South Dade area, which is a really interesting part of Miami-Dade County. So what services can Legal Services of Greater Miami provide for small businesses? How can you help small businesses? When you think of a small business, they're not big corporations, so you're looking at like mom and pop,
Right.
could be one or two people total. Do you have opportunities there to help small businesses?
That is awesome that you asked that question. No, it really is, and for a couple of reasons. One is because Legal Services has started a project focusing on small businesses. As you know, small businesses are kind of the economic engine of a lot of Miami-Dade.
Absolutely.
South Dade especially. So entrepreneurship is in many ways the way out of poverty. Whether it's for new members of the community or traditionally underserved members. So entrepreneurship, small businesses, startups, they will provide legal help, but also the legal side of business advice for them through the Small Business Project. But I think it's also important for the established business community to know that legal services and poor people or people that can't afford legal representation aren't the enemy. They're your workforce. So whether you're a small business just trying to get off the ground or an established business, you could be a big hospital or in the hospitality industry, partnering with your employees to make sure they're getting the basic services met or their needs met is crucial. I mean, if you've got half your workforce who can't get medical care, you're not going to be able to service your clients, right?
Absolutely. I think that's incredible. That's such an important thing to note, and that relationship between the employer and the employee is something that's often overlooked. But you put it perfectly.
As a labor and employment attorney, it's on my front windshield every day.
Yeah.
And I think just making sure that if you have an employee that has a legal issue that they're dealing with on their own, they're going to be distracted. Best case scenario. Worst case, they're missing work. If you have an employee that's going through an eviction proceeding on their own. So having an advocate really helps that employee focus on work when they're there.
Right.
And also get them, long-term, get them the services they need so they can provide some stability. And obviously, you don't want an employee that's one distracted and then having to maybe move out of the area, that sort of thing. So I think it is critical.
Yeah. So I have an interesting question for you. You're talking about all of these amazing services. You're telling me that you have a team of 30 lawyers, that you're kind of a not-for-profit, kind of not in the traditional word. How are you funded?
We're absolutely a non-for-profit. Let me be clear. We are a 501c3 and accept contributions on our website.
There we go. For donations.
Yes. So how are we funded? That's a great question. So like other nonprofits, we are grants and fundraising.
And that was going to be my big thing. Is it a lot of government-based grants?
Yes.
Okay.
So we get about 60 to 70% of our funding from government-based grants, a combination of federal and state and county. And our largest funder is something called the Legal Services Corporation, and it's a federally chartered corporation that gets funding from Congress and then awards it to the different field programs of which we're one. So there's legal aids that cover the entire country, which is kind of a fun fact that people never realize, and the territory. So if there's a low-income individual somewhere in the country or one of the U.S. territories, they have access to a legal services attorney. Now there's a shortage of them, but there's at least an organization there to help.
That's incredible. That's definitely filling a gap in our community, and that's amazing. And you accept donations and contributions, and I'm sure there's other ways. So let's talk about that. How would someone who's listening or is, oh my God, this is resonating with me, and I want to be involved, and I want to make that difference and that change. How would someone get involved with you?
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry.
Join the board.
So in terms of getting involved with us, obviously I was sort of joking but serious. Financial contributions are welcomed, and we make every effort to recognize all of our donors and supporters, because I always think people want to join a circle that's growing. And then also for attorneys, there's a great opportunity to volunteer with us in terms of pro bono, providing pro bono legal assistance. Yes, we have a staff of 30 attorneys working tirelessly for our community, but we also work with hundreds of pro bono volunteers, pro bono attorneys every year that volunteer and take additional cases. So our office last year handled 5,000 cases.
That was going to be one of my questions. She's ahead of me. She's a great lawyer.
About
She's doing.
about a little over 10% of that was handled.
You said it was 5,000 cases.
Yes, but that is, in full disclosure, that is everything from somebody who gets a consultation to handling an appeal. So it's a full gamut. They're not all litigation cases, obviously. Right. But it is a significant amount of cases.
It's
yes,
impressive in a year.
And about 10% of that was through pro bono attorneys, meaning private attorneys like Porpoise and other attorneys in the private bar that do not work for our organization but volunteer and take a case for us.
Wow.
So they help our clients as well. And so we're definitely trying to grow our pro bono practice to make sure that we can serve more clients, because there is more need coming in than we are able to assist, in full disclosure.
But if you're not an attorney, you can still get involved, because we
Right.
more than accept. We rely on donations, but the business community is full of really important partners, whether it's bankers, financial institutions, financial advisors, helping with financial literacy. You're talking about an underserved population that doesn't just have legal services, but they don't understand the repercussions of the waterfall effect that Monica was describing. So we really, really love to partner with all aspects of the business community, because these are holistic needs that people have.
Absolutely.
And I want to highlight something Porpoise said. We have clients and we serve those clients, but the service that we provide our clients obviously most directly impacts them, but benefits the entire community. When you have individuals that can go through a justice system that works for them and feel that they were served appropriately, despite the outcome, obviously we want to win and prevail in our cases, but even when we don't, when our clients feel like they had a fair shake, that is making the system work for a community that otherwise it wouldn't have. And our justice system doesn't work if, by and large, people feel like it's failing them. And so I think that's a service that's the judicial justice side that we provide for the community. But then there's the aspect that we're providing a stability and economic stability for a lot of families in our community. And so that's a service for the community beyond those individual families that we're serving.
That is so powerful when you think of that. When you think of a community or a group of people that are already, sort of underprivileged, underserved, and then being able to, for lack of a better word, just legally go through the system and have a proper resolution is so important versus the alternative, because the alternative is what's going to, unfortunately perpetuate that underprivileged, underserved community. So what you're doing and the impact that it's having on the community in terms of growing and shaping the community for the better in the future is absolutely amazing. I think we're getting ready to wrap it up. I think everyone always is very shocked when I say that. So our last question, and if there's anything else that you want to say about legal services of Greater Miami, by all means, please, you have that opportunity. But the last question that I typically tend to ask is, what's the best advice that you've ever received, and what advice would you like to leave our audience with today?
I don't know about the best advice I've ever received, because I've received a lot of good advice, most of which I've ignored. But just pertinent to our conversation, I think the best advice I ever received was from the chairman of one of my old law firms, Cesar Alvarez, who liked to tell a story about when he was an associate attorney and was being urged by his mentor to give charitably. And he said, I've already given. What do you want me to give until it hurts? And Cesar says, no. he told me, I want you to keep giving after it hurts until it feels good. And that's something that I try to live by. Is just when I think I've given enough, I give a little more and it feels great.
That's incredible. I think I have a true respect for people that give back to the community, because I genuinely believe that it's our duty as citizens to give back.
Yeah, and it works for all of us. You know, whether it's the angry young man who wants to stick it to the man, but then realizes, like Monica was saying, that there are resources that you can be heard, or whether it's the person who doesn't want to pay taxes because they send their kids to private school, and then the public school kids have nowhere to go, right? I mean, it helps the community.
It helps everybody.
Rising tide.
I was about to say a rising tide lifts all boats. I was just about to say that. And I feel like I say that almost every interview, because we always just talk about how so many different partners and so many different things in our community come together to just make it better. So yes, thank you. What about you, Monica?
The one that sticks with me, again, I don't know if it's the best advice, is just something my grandmother said was, leave things better than you find them. And I think that really applies to what we do as an organization, because it's not just, obviously she meant picking up my room, obviously, most of the time, but in general,
we're doing the dishes and leaving.
But
the
then
sink
she would
clean.
talk about it generally too, and the concept is leave things better than you find them, because when you're in a space, you have an obligation. So when you're in a community, you have an obligation to those around you. You may not see it, you may not understand why, you may not see the connection, but you have an obligation. So leave things better than you find them. You have a responsibility to those around you.
That's awesome. I think that's incredible. That's very, 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 very powerful advice from both of you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing that with our audience. And with that, we're getting ready to wrap it up today. So again, thank you for watching. This has been Live with Brittnie in partnership with our friends here at Miami Community Newspapers. If you want to be on the show, if you want to be featured, feel free to reach out to us at Chamber South. You can contact us via phone, 305-661-1621, or you can email us at info@chambersouth.com. These shows are filmed every Friday morning at 10 a.m., and we will see you next week.